passiamo la parola al dottor Le Houezec, che ci parlerà dell'impatto sulla salute pubblica.
Grazie Marco. Buongiorno a tutti. But that would be my only Italian. I can understand that I can. Okay, we'll try to make an overview today of the impact of the e-cigarettes or vaporizers, as I prefer to call them, on public health. We already have quite a lot of signs which are positive on public health, and I'm really confident that we will gather more and more data in the coming months. Here's my disclosure. I was trained as a neuroscientist, and I did some clinical pharmacology on nicotine. And I've been working on nicotine for 30 years. And I'm working as a consultant, mostly for the pharmaceutical industry. Less now, as you could guess. And I've seen the e-cigarettes coming in the scientific domain as there was a huge increase in interest by researchers, and there was more and more new studies coming out. But it has been doing the same in the public. And actually, it is the smokers who actually did it. It came from the base. They grabbed the e-cigarette, they tried it, they found it useful, and it went with a huge increase because people were talking to each other. That's the first time in tobacco control that smokers talk to each other. And this graph represents the monthly users on the French Vapors forum. And this escalation, as you can see here, you can put it on the market, the number of users, whatever. We've seen a huge increase, exponential increase of interest on e-cigarettes. And all that Ricardo has just shown is just a reaction from the authorities, from the media and so on, because it's something they haven't any control on. It came from the base, and everybody was surprised, and they didn't know how to react. So probably it's just epidemic, I would say. But the facts are here. This is an example from France. Ricardo mentioned, and I will show it just after he gave me the data for Italy, but you can see that in France it's the same. Last year there were 8% less tobacco sales in France, and this is both for cigarettes but also for roll your own tobacco. So it was not a switch from cigarettes to roll your own. It was just a drop in tobacco sales. We never saw that before. No tobacco control policy has ever produced such an effect. And this is going on. The first 3 months, first quarter of 2014, the sales are still going down, 7%. And the same with roll your own. Also, nicotine replacement therapy is and other medications for smoking cessation are also falling very fast. Last year, it was a 54% drop, which is unprecedented, and it's still going on. So the only thing that has changed in the landscape is the appearance of e-cigarettes. The tobacco control policies and so on have not changed much. It's not the small increase in tobacco price that could have such an effect. We know it from the past. So that's the only explanation. And even the OFDT France, which is a governmental organization looking at data on addiction, all sort of addiction, they recognized it. So there is no question about this. And here in Italy, we have the same, a huge drop. Earlier than in France, you had a drop between 2011 and 12. In France, it's really started in 2013. But it's the same scale. Yeah, this is the first drop is the smoking ban. I was there in Italy at the time, I remember. And this is from the same French organism. They made a survey last November to have an idea of who was using e-cigarettes in France. Actually, the data looks quite similar to another survey from England. And basically, it shows that about 18% of the population has tried at least once an e-cigarette. From these people, about a third of them used at least one e-cigarette in the last month, but the daily use is in about 3%, a little bit more than 3% of people, of which 1/3 has quit smoking, which means at least in France about 500,000 new quitters, and 2/3 of them are still dual users. But in this survey, it was shown that people had started to use e-cigarettes less than 6 months ago. So among these dual users, there are certainly people who are still in the process of quitting smoking. Basically, in England, we have about the same. And in France, we have also about 2 million users, like in Great Britain. But they had a bit more people using it to quit smoking. But the proportion of quitters, ex-smokers in e-cig users, and dual users is the same, 1/3 to 2/3. The great news, I think, and this is due to data that are collected every week in UK. It's a study that Robert West is conducting, where they have a survey every month, every week, and they collect data on who is quitting, who relapsed, what have they used to quit smoking, are they trying to cut down, and so on. And again, we see in the middle of 2012 that e-cigarettes are rising a lot, and in the end are getting at least used as often as NRTs, nicotine replacement therapy, to quit smoking. from this graph, we can see that the e-cigarette was used more than NRT, but recently the curve crossed again. So it's basically about the same percentage of people using either e-cigarettes or NRT. Again, this is very encouraging, and we should see very shortly the improvement. As Ricardo mentioned, there are a lot of misinformation in the press, and people who are against e-cigarettes are mainly arguing that the presence of e-cigarette could undermine tobacco control policies, could renormalize smoking, or could increase the use of nicotine by young people. None of this is based on strong data. On the contrary, the data we have up to now, at least do I know in England and in France, are not showing this. And even the data from the US, which are misinterpreted, are not showing that. What we see is that, again, about 18% of people have used e-cigarettes. 1/3 of them has quit smoking with it. And in non-smokers, ever use is just maybe 1%, but ever use could be just once. And current use, which I don't remember exactly what is the definition in this study, but it's probably current use in the month. It's not daily use, but at least once in the month, is negligible. So there is no solid data to say that e-cigarette will, reintroduce smoking or renormalize smoking. And the same about children. Some children will try anything. We have all tried anything, or more or less. So the try is just a game. Doesn't mean that you will, follow up. And that's exactly what we see. We see clearly that in the youngsters from 11 to 14, the 1% has used them more than once during the last month. None of them is using it more than once a week. So it's really very, very little use, and even in 16 to 18, where you can suppose that you have at least as many smokers as in the general population at that age, which is the case in many countries, you see that the use is actually very, very low in non-smokers.
Remember the definition of children? Definition of children?
The age is here, 11 to 14 and 16 to 18. And we have the same data from a Paris study. This is a study done by Professor Dottenberg in Paris. He's doing this study every year on school children. And on the left here is the use of tobacco and e-cigarettes between 16 and 19 years old. So you can see that from 2011 to 2014, the number of e-cig users has increased. The number of exclusive users has increased, but very, very, very low, representing 3% here. But the major message here is the number of smokers has considerably decreased, even if you include the dual users. And the number of non-smokers has increased. And here are the data for the 16-19, like here, and the 12-15 years old. And this is the tobacco consumption. And you can see that over these 4 years, the tobacco consumption has decreased in youth. So e-cigarettes is used more by young people, but smoking is decreasing. So that's exactly what we see in the adult population. They're no different. It attracts mostly those who smoke and those who want to quit or cut down. We don't have prevalence data in France. If we are lucky, we have that every 5 years. They have done the collection this year, so maybe in 2 years we'll have the data. It's a pity, but that's how it is. But in the UK, it's clear that the prevalence of smoking has decreased faster in the last years. The new data from March show a little bit of plateau here, but basically you can see that the decrease from 2008, 9, 10 is very slow, and then it started to go a little bit further. But remember, this is in the UK, we are in the 20th%. In France, we are in the 30th%. So I'm sure we would see a steeper drop if we had the data. These are the data for here in Italy, and it's kind of interesting because it seems from this graph that the prevalence in men has not changed very much, while the prevalence in women dropped and then increased again. I guess this is due to the climate. The fact that the press is doing what they're doing, the fact that the institutions, I mean the ERS, things like this, are saying bad things about e-cigarettes. Probably has this impact. It's amazing, and I would like to have some feedback from Ricardo or anyone else here, because we had a discussion saying that from your studies you've seen that women are less easily adopting e-cigarettes than men. But from this, it's amazing because it seems that actually men didn't quit smoking as much as women do.
Yeah.
So
they tried in 2013, they were less attached and they relapsed. That's a possible explanation. But you see, women are very erratic even in 2008 and 9, and I cannot explain that.
Well, this is the crisis.
Probably.
2008,
This is
2009.
consistent with men.
Yes, it's men and women, so I would guess this is the effect of the crisis. So we still need data, but it is really encouraging to see that. And although we have a big threat with us, with the new European directive, which is much too strict for e-cigarettes and would be very damaging. But we are lucky in a way that in many countries we have about 2 years in front of us. And in 2 years, it will be so obvious that I can't see how the governments would be able to not listen and not do something. Because now we are talking about sales, about prevalence, but in 2 years' time, we will be talking about saving of healthcare costs. People will have less, we will see less cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, we will see a drop in asthma crisis, things like this. So in 2 years, we could really see an improvement in public health. So what is the problem? Often the authorities, and we see that everywhere, say, well, yes, e-cigarettes, but we don't really know how harmful they are. No, well, as Ricardo just shown you, at least 1,000 times, we have no doubt, but not one on cigarettes. Cigarettes kill 1 smoker out of 2. And what about second-hand vapor? Is it safe to be around vapors? Probably much, much, much safer than being around smokers, because second-hand smoke kills too. Will they lead to smoking cessation? The big question. Yes, at least what we see now, at least in 1/3 of those who are using it, and the 2/3 are in their way, and maybe some will not quit definitely, but they will cut down, and there will be some improvement. But we need to do something. The smoking prevalence is plateauing everywhere. Even in Australia, even in countries like that, where they believe that they will get rid of tobacco in 10 or 15 years, they're just dreaming. If we are not taking this opportunity of the e-cigarette, there will be no improvement. It will continue to go down very, 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 very slowly, and that will perpetuate deaths and diseases caused by tobacco. And another question that comes very often is undermining the tobacco control efforts. Smoking ban and things like this. The data clearly shows that the tobacco sales are decreasing like never. And the prevalence has started to decrease too. So it's not undermining tobacco control, but we should sustain tobacco control measures to help smokers to switch to e-cigarette, to quit smoking. And I am quite happy actually to see this recent conclusion from Ash in London. They just changed their position or they updated their position on e-cigarettes. And 2 days ago, I was really surprised to see that Ash Scotland has taken exactly the same steps, which is very good, because they were very, very much opposed to e-cigarettes a few months ago. They changed their mind and they align now with Ash London. And Ash London starts with the first, in the summary, the first sentence is clear. Electronic cigarettes are not cigarettes. They contain no tobacco, and using them is not smoking. That's a different behavior. And they are more attractive than nicotine replacement therapy. Yes, people stop smoking, enjoying life. It makes a difference. And yes, it can help smokers to quit. The question about children and so on is a nonsense. I mean, there will be youngsters who will try it, but they better try an e-cigarette than try a cigarette first. So, and what I like very much in the position of Ash, which is not the position of the French government at the time, because they are thinking of introducing an e-cigarette ban in public places. Ash is very strong on this and says that in the absence of evidence of significant harm to bystanders, Ash does not support the inclusion of electronic cigarettes in smoke-free laws. That's exactly the position we had in the letter we sent to WHO. We agree that the owner of the place could decide if yes or not they allow e-cigarette to be used, but making it in the law for every place is a nonsense. So the message should be clear, and the government should be yelling, switch to e-cigs rather than continue smoking. So I'm still confident. I'm optimistic by nature, but
So you suggest to move to UK? That's the reason why UK don't want to join Europe, because they think we don't think. We make disaster.
no, but the situation is improving. I can attest in France, on the 17th of June, the Ministry of Health is supposed to announce new tobacco control measures. So we don't know yet, but the last time she spoke, she said e-cigarette could be banned in some public places. So the message has already changed a bit. It's not public places, it's some public places. And it could make sense to ban it in schools and in some places. Hospitals, yes and no, it depends where. Church. They don't need that. Ok, grazie mille.